Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a great one for you. This is what we got on the show today. A big win for renters and really for the left nationwide as Cori Bush, the freshman representative from St. Louis, galvanizing a massive progressive revolt over evictions, leading to a means-tested but incredibly significant, incredibly helpful eviction moratorium being put back in place. We will break down how this amazing win happened for Cori Bush and give her a lot of credit, while taking you through the new eviction moratorium and problems with the Renters Assistance Program that made this whole brouhaha, I guess you could call it, necessary in the first place. Meanwhile, we are taking you back to the New York State House, where Andrew Cuomo is in a bunch of trouble, facing 3 new DA inquiries and 1 accuser lawsuit. But our first story today, it's sad to say, of course, but Nina Turner lost last night to Shontel Brown in Ohio's 11th District. We'll go through a thread by Jordan Sheridan breaking down exactly why this happened, as he was a reporter on the ground there. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is Newsflash 549. Welcome to the show. So yeah, Jordan Sheridan is a great reporter on the ground. Please, if you feel like it, if you want to see, if you're sick and tired of the mainstream media, obviously keep listening to the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. SWRN is here for you, bringing you the stories that you will not see on places like CNN and all that. But if you're looking for another great media source, Status Quo has to be up there. They are great. They do amazing in the field reporting about stuff that really nobody talks about, and they have the resources to go to those places. So Jordan Sheridan is he's running that organization and doing a great job. He was there on the ground reporting in Cleveland. Let's go through a little bit of what he had to say after the loss. So he writes a thread on Nina Turner loss. Unlike the phony leftist tweeter celebrating Turner's loss, personally, I really try and stay. For those of you who may be on Twitter, there is or may not be on Twitter. It's really kind of a dumb beef that a lot of people have been having on Twitter, kind of attacking Turner and attacking members of the squad for not being effective enough, and for Nina Turner for running as a Democrat. Come on, it's really ridiculous that this would be even up for debate. This is a heavily Democratic district. This is a place where people like Biden, people like Obama, maybe not as much Hillary Clinton, but they command a lot of respect. And running as someone who's in the Green Party would have just, or a third party or People's Party person, would have been really crazy for her to do in the first place. And there is some real, and I have been heavily critical of not heavily critical, but I've been critical of the squad. I get why a lot of people who really supported, donated, helped to elect these people into Congress, and were so inspired by them, in 2018, 2019, like I would be really disappointed that now they're here in the Biden administration with a perfect point, a perfect way to really do some damage. And what do we see happening? Not a lot. But yeah, the squad, it can be ineffectual, but I guess our first 2 stories tie in together kind of well, because it shows you what the squad can really do when they put their mind to it. But the idea that criticizing or celebrating anyone celebrating Nina Turner's loss here from the left, and I'm not talking about Shontel Brown supporters in the Democratic Party, are absolutely really foolish and misguided, and it should not be listened to. Because Nina Turner, she is as pure as it can be in terms of principles, and the principles that progressive support, Medicare for All, Green New Deal. She has been supporting that. She's been working for that for many, many years. Pretty much the entire time, the left, quote unquote, in this country has been their resurgence, their 2015 Bernie-induced resurgence. She's been there through it all and a huge figure throughout. And it was crushing to see her loss. But it's ridiculous. So Sheridan starts off by saying she didn't lose because she ran as a Democrat. She would have lost by 50 if she ran as Green Party. And that's clear as day to anyone with 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a brain. She didn't lose because she tried to, quote, court conservative Democrats instead of running scorched earth against Joe Biden, the Democratic Party. Biden beat Trump by 30 points in this district. The area is a majority of black voters who don't hate the Democratic Party like YouTube hosts do, and that's exactly right. I think one of the biggest, and we'll get into this, is the fact that Brown, and somewhat convincingly, was able to tie Turner as someone who was not loyal enough to the Democratic Party. That hurt her. Like she would not have done better by attacking Joe Biden more. That is 100% for sure. She also Sheridan also writing she didn't lose because of the squad or forced the vote, a laughable claim considering the majority of the voters in this district would not be able to tell you which politicians are even in the squad. Yeah, like no one's tweeting, responding to people like Jimmy Dore on Twitter in Ohio's 11th district, or not anyone that mattered in terms of the deciding factors in this district. Anyway, so one of the big reasons that Sheridan says that Turner lost. So she for multiple reasons. He writes, although Turner raised a ton of money in the final weeks before the election, Dem Party super PACs flooded TV here with ads smearing Turner. Just being in the hotel room days before the election, I could not turn the channel without seeing anti-Turner ads. A lot of people are like, Nina Turner raised so much small dollar donations. Well, yeah, she did. But we'll get in. But the DMFI PACs, not only did they raise more, but they spent far, far more. They dwarfed everybody else in spending, and they were ridiculous. And of course, Chantel Brown herself didn't raise a lot of money, but a lot of PACs did raise a lot of money. And Chantel Brown PACs are not as much as she tries, they're not associated with Chantel Brown, and they can't be legally associated with Chantel Brown. So Chantel Brown both raised and spent more money, tons and tons and tons and tons of negative ads. Anyone who tries to tell you, this is a positive campaign, this is a positive vision run by the right-wing Democratic Party and shows they have a real vision and a real path going forward, no. They ran and won because of real negativity, real just constant barrage of ads in this campaign. And unfortunately, it did not go like that main Senate election I talked about a few shows ago did, where there was so much dark money in the district that voters got turned off by it and went with Nina, as they went with Susan Collins, someone who they knew. They don't know Nina as much as they probably don't know Chantel Brown that well either. But it really seems like that dark money had a big effect. Not only TV ads, but you couldn't drive around Cleveland without seeing large billboards quoting Nina's bull of shit Biden comments. So if you hadn't been following Nina or the campaign at all, you would know what happened there was she compared voting for Biden to like voting for Trump was like voting for a full bowl of shit, and Biden was voting for half a bowl of shit, which that personally, I personally appreciated saying that at the time because it's how I feel and I like someone saying it. But there is a very real chance that yes, that did cost her, because there's a lot of places where, and a lot, especially with those kind of older black voters who are incredibly loyal to the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has been with them through so much. A lot of the progress they've seen in their life, because especially older black voters, they, obviously and logically have a much better understanding of what it's like to be in a much worse place than they are right now. Not to say that the place that they're in right now is any good, but not only TV ads, but you couldn't drive around Cleveland without seeing large billboards quoting the bullshit Biden comments. Flooding TV and street signs with negative ads is a very effective and powerful thing, especially in a local special election in the dead of summer. So not really too much outside influence. You're just kind of seeing what you're seeing and really getting a lot of, that's one of your only impressions when in a race that did not really get a lot of attention outside progressive circles. Another thing is Turner's campaign didn't go negative against Brown until a few weeks before the election, but by the time they did, the millions worth of negative ads against her from PACs like Democratic Majority for Israel had been on TV for a while from multiple sources other than the flood of volunteers that came in the final days before the election to knock So from multiple sources, other than the flood of volunteers that came in the final days before the election and knock on doors for Turner, the campaign did not have a strong ground game or field operation. So pretty much what was happening there is in places like, especially where she needed it, in places like Akron where she had to run up the score to win, and she only won by 1 point, that, Akron and Cleveland was a big reason why she lost, not, driving that turnout there, is because if she didn't have the field operation, and you shouldn't have people knocking on doors telling people, this is what Turner's all about. But there were tons and tons of dark money ads smearing Turner as like this Trump-supporting, Democratic Party hating, Medicare for all, amazingly, Medicare for all and minimum wage hating Democrat. Then if that's the only message that voters are seeing, then that's a really big problem, and really emphasizes, especially for progressive candidates, how important it is to have a mass ground game, especially for people on the left. TV ads have the lowest rate of return in any political investment. And you can run as much TV ads as you want if you have the opponents can have run as much TV ads if you want, but if you're out there, knocking on voters' doors, knowing who you need to get out, having the ground game to beat all other ground games, which in my opinion, any left-wing campaign worth their salt should have. I mean, that's a big reason why Bernie won in the places that he did, is because he had tons and tons of people making that Bernie journey over to go knock doors for him. And yeah, that was a huge benefit for him, and a problem that Turner did not have that situation. So for people simply trying to simplify Nina Turner's loss as, she ran as a Democrat, please realize folks have no idea what they're talking about. Those folks have no idea what they're talking about and are just reactionaries doing a damn good job of dividing up the left. Turner was up by 35 points 2 to 3 months ago running as a Democrat. Whether she ran as a Democrat, Green Party, or fill-in-the-blank party, the same flood of money that would have come against her, money that worked based on the reasons many voters gave for supporting Brown, to volunteers knocking on doors. That doesn't mean the Democratic Party is great, or folks shouldn't be trying other paths like a third party, or in my view, the most effective economic boycotts. But anyone telling you that Turner lost because she ran as a Democrat or didn't run a scorched earth enough are simply uninformed reactionaries who are more interested in ranting and raving online than actually seizing power. They are mostly the same folks who are rightfully complaining the squad doesn't fight. But then when Cori Bush comes out of the Capitol, calls out Biden and the Dems for days, gets mass media attention, and the eviction moratorium extended, they call it a photo op and not enough, and doesn't matter because she wouldn't answer a question on force the vote. Because there's a lot of this beef that because it's really tough, because you see these YouTube people that, they're a big reason why a lot of people get into the left. Like, who are we kidding here? It's like a lot of people, like a lot of YouTube shows command some of the biggest hubs of left-wing activity in this country, and sometimes Squad can't piss a lot of people off because they haven't been fighting really a lot up until this eviction situation. But there's a fine line between saying, hey, yeah, the squad should fight more, but and you didn't come on my show to answer my questions, so you don't fight enough, and you're a fake, and you're a phony and a fraud, and I'm going to turn my audience against you. Like, there's a fine line in between those two things. And that was just something that a lot of people you kind of have to judge for yourself. Like, it's very, very tough. If you're out there, you're listening to this, you like me listening to this podcast, you like listening to, I don't know, Jimmy Dore or something like that. I don't even know. But there is a fine line between all of that stuff. Here's the reality. Nina Turner got crushed by big money, and like most losing campaigns, her campaign had weaknesses, namely a bad field operation. But Turner didn't lose in the landslide. She lost by 6%, way less than Cori Bush's first Democratic primary defeat. She could potentially run against Brown next year, as Brown will be up for re-election next year. I think she definitely should. She could run for Ohio Senate in 22 or not run again. But beyond what Nina Turner does, I will emphatically say the left will continue to lose if it continues to eat itself alive and focus more on organizing non-stop clickbaity YouTube streams, declaring everyone and their mother frauds and sellouts instead of organizing around strong progressive candidates, organizing primary challenges to corporate Democrats, and if necessary, elected progressives, not fighting and going along with corporate Dems too much, for not fighting and going along with corporate Dems too much, or organizing economic protests and boycotts. It's easy to bitch and complain online, and there are many people doing so. I think that's, it's a great point, because there is that real justification of, or that real frustration of the squads and fighting enough. They're not holding Biden's feet to the fire. And there's can be a real time for it. You want to just say, oh, what was the point of electing these people? But then you get people who are like, oh, they are they need to be primaried. The Democratic Party is no one associated with the Democratic Party is worth our time and consideration. Like, that is just a completely farcical, dumb way of looking at things, because if you look at what matters and what the political gravity situation is, the route electorally to have any success is through the Democratic Party. Like, it is through, electing kind of in, AOC, Cori Bush, getting these members in there and having them be our kind of voice on the inside. But they actually have to be our voice on the inside. And for them to listen to us when they're on the inside, we have to have a strong voice on the outside. And that's why it's so important that, at least in my opinion, that movements and elected officials work together and not try and break each other up. But the biggest problem is these so-called movements on the left these days, a lot of them are just YouTube channels. And what are YouTube channels trying to do? Get more clicks, get more attention. And whatever narrative helps them do that the most, a lot of times, that's what they'll do. There are a lot of YouTubers out there, a lot of media figures on the left who I think are incredibly helpful, inspiring to me, keep me informed, keep me updated on news that I wouldn't really know about. But there are a lot of people who are out there and trying for their own self-aggrandizement, and that can be a real problem. And there's just a lot of fighting really on both sides. I on the kind of the intra-left conflicts, I kind of consider myself a moderate, but I think there is one thing for sure: when the squad fights, it can win, and to do that, they have to fight. We'll talk about a big victory that they had next. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our segment to tell you all about what's going on here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network this summer. We do, as I'm sure you know, have a great lineup available for you. We, of course, start with our flagship show, Newsflash, all new Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Uncultured, irregularly back every Saturday with live music and sports analysis with my co-host for the summer, Bennett Laxton. Hidden History will be brand new every Thursday on a bit of a hiatus, but will return shortly. It's the summer of podcasting. It's the summer of sounds. All you got to do is just keep listening wherever you get your podcasts, always here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. All right, everybody, let's move on to our next story. It sucks to talk about Nina Turner losing. It's very, very sad, but I think she should. Personally, I think she should run again in a year and see what happens. I would love to see it, but that is obviously her decision. It is a big, big commitment to run for office anywhere and get smeared by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Really, I think it passed $1 million of people, impugning your character and attacking you nonstop and things like that. So, obviously, no pressure, but it would be nice, Nina. We love you. Anyway, let's move on to our next story, and that is with one of my favorite people of all time, Cori Bush of St. Louis. Representative Cori Bush of Missouri was 20 the first time she was evicted, tossed out by a landlord after a violent fight with her boyfriend. The next time, she was 29 and quit a low-wage job to attend nursing school and could no longer afford her rent. It would happen a third time in 2015 as Bush threw herself into the protest movement in Ferguson after a white police officer shot and killed Michael Brown, a black teenager. The eviction notice was waiting on her door one night, prompted, she said, by neighbors who feared she would bring the unrest home with her. So, evicted for leading a protest movement in this country. Yes, it can happen. So when it became clear on Friday night that neither Congress nor the White House was going to act to stop a pandemic-era federal eviction moratorium from expiring, leaving hundreds of thousands of low-income Americans at risk of losing their homes, if not millions, Mrs. Bush, now 45 and a first-term Democratic Congresswoman from St. Louis, felt a familiar flood of anxiety and a flash of purpose. And you know what? This is why. This is the reason why people like Justice Democrats exist. All these movements that, aren't YouTube shows, because YouTube shows don't get these people elected. Movements of hundreds and hundreds of people all across this country do. That is why they fight. That is why they exist. And those are the results they can get when they kind of spring into action and do great things. So, and also another big factor of this is she's probably the only person. I'm like 99.999% sure she's the only person in Congress to have ever been homeless, and she slept in her car. Like, she is a true person who is a lot damn closer to what Americans actually experience on a day-to-day basis than everybody else in that Capitol building. So having her there, like, that would not have happened if it just been some random representative who did that, like, who hadn't had the experience. They would have been arguably way, way, way less likely to do something like that. When you have a Congress that looks like America, not just in color, not just in, they're black, but they went to Harvard Law, they worked at McKinsey, and now they're running for Congress, like, kind of a Kamala Harris figure, like identity politics queen. No, she's actually had the lived experience of not, being black in America, but also being a black woman in America, leading a protest, being a nurse, having a working class job, having to be trying to raise kids in a tough situation, and being homeless. Like, that is huge, huge, huge experience to bring to Congress, and something that I would like in Congress a lot more than, oh, he went to all the right schools and she went to, she had all the right internships or something like that. Makes her, as if that makes her qualify for Congress. It's so backwards what we value in this world. But as her colleagues boarded planes home for a 7-week summer recess, she took a page from her years as an activist and did the only thing she could think of. She got an orange sleeping bag, grabbed a lawn chair, and began what turned to be a round-the-clock sit-in on the steps of the United States Capitol that galvanized a full-on progressive result. She stayed put in rain, cold, and brutal summer heat till Tuesday, when Biden, under growing pressure from Bush's group and Speaker Nancy Pelosi, abruptly relented and announced a new 60-day federal eviction moratorium covering areas overrun with the Delta variant of coronavirus. It was means-tested. It was not really what should have been. It should have been, months ago. It should have been like no problem at all. But this eviction situation moved through. I think it was by the CDC because of the Delta variant stipulation in there. But it is going to save a lot of people. Even as Biden reiterated his administration's fear that the ban would be running afoul of the courts, it was a striking reversal for his team, designed to give state and local governments time to distribute billions of dollars in federal rental assistance that is yet to go out the door. So pretty much what has happened here is there is this federal rental assistance program that I believe was part of the American Rescue Plan that Biden passed in his first few months in office. That was supposed to have billions and billions of dollars of federal money, but the program was so poorly designed that really a lot of that money has not left, D.C. yet. It hasn't gone out to the people who need it. So that's why this eviction moratorium was such a big deal, because eventually the hope is you provide money to these people and they eventually will be able to pay their rent, and they will do it without going bankrupt, and not being able to put food on the table for their kids. The government does have, in theory, a plan to cover them, but the program was so bad it just wasn't ready for deployment yet. And that's why this eviction moratorium here was so important. So that is a key point there. Another key point is, Biden as a president, shocker, he does have influence. He can do things. He can pull an Andrew Jackson. The courts have made the decision now let them enforce it kind of a deal. He can run afoul of the courts. And trust me, Biden, it's not that scary. No one's going to come in your White House and kill you because you made this move. And I think it's probably going to help you out politically because you did this thing, and a lot of people are going to be in their homes for longer because of it when they otherwise very well couldn't have been. Like, that is a huge, huge step for someone like Biden to take. And he would not have taken it without Cori Bush out there doing this. And so Biden here, I think he learned something that, it's okay to do a political move that isn't exactly in line with the strict rules of the Senate or the courts or, whatever the case may be. But, and get away with it and also help people in the process. That's, a concept that Biden and much of the Democratic Party it's very, very foreign to them. It's not something that they ever do. And that big thing has been that incredibly, big, consequential, important thing has been a constant theme of the Biden administration. And it would be interesting to see him apply that logic to say, the Senate parliamentarian. that would be very, very nice to see. It's like, Senate parliamentarian, sorry, I'm going to give millions of Americans, disproportionately minority Americans, a raise with a $15 minimum wage. I don't care if you think it doesn't fit with the budget reconciliation rules. It's going in there. And what I think this teaches Cori Bush and the squad is that, yes, you can fight. You can call out the Biden administration, Pelosi, and what they will do is try and take credit for the thing that they should have been doing all the time that you pushed them to do. I mean, if they end up doing that, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It just proves how awful and contemptuous that they are. Jen Psaki stepping out there on the podium and saying, thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for your vision. Like, the only vision she has is when her next Wall Street fundraiser is going to be. Like, what a joke. The idea that Nancy Pelosi has deep vision about and really trying to push the boundaries of what's possible is hilarious. That was all Cori Bush out there grinding, pushing, pounding the pavement, and really staying out there. It's been really impressive. My brain cannot understand how we're supposed to just leave, Bush said in an interview on Wednesday, recounting the months she spent 20 years ago living out of a 1996 Ford Explorer. I felt like I did sitting in that car. Like, who speaks for me? Is this because I deserve it? And that is so, so huge and so, so important that we have people out there, or just one person out of 535 thinking like that. She saved people. I'm going to say it. She saved people's lives. It's huge. And this shows you that they can push, they can fight, and they can do what they need to do. They can challenge the administration, and they can, reverse these key policy issues. And hopefully this response from people, this outpouring of love and support that Bush and the squad are getting, can show them that, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to, take that inside track of, we'll talk to Pelosi and we'll work around it. We'll try and get him in a bill. We'll give it a good shot. No, you don't have to do that. You can do something that's a little aggressive, a little scary. And this is why I had such a good feeling watching Cori Bush get elected last summer, is that this summer she'd be doing things like this that are literally going to save people's lives and make people's lives substantially and significantly better. That didn't come from anywhere in the Democratic Party but Cori damn Bush. So really, really cool stuff. And it's inspiring, and it's really cool to see. So furious that the White House had tried to punt the political mess to Congress, Pelosi, it's ridiculous. That's the thing she was furious about, that she had to deal with it. She was out to lunch. She said literally that she did not realize what was going on until a day before the eviction moratorium was set to expire. She was just pissed off that she had to deal with it. She was like, "Oh, really, Biden? You thrust this kind of political hot mess onto me?" That's what she was thinking. She wasn't thinking, "Oh, how do I get these people into their homes? How do I keep them in their homes?" Not at all. Because in the end of the day, the leaders in power, they don't care about you. They just don't. Cori Bush was the person who stepped out there by sleeping outside the Capitol building. She made them care. She forced them to care. And that is what they need to keep doing. That is their role in Congress. Being in contact with movements, being in contact with the people to stand up and say, this is not okay. And when you see blatant moral outrages like that, to step up and make a difference. Like, that is a huge, huge deal. All right. Yeah, so it was Bush. This is the last paragraph here from the New York Times. It was Bush using the tactics of a street organizer alongside fellow progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York and Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, who joined her encampment, who thrust the issue into the national consciousness and refused to let it go. More of this, please. When they get together, they can win. As Ilhan Omar likes to say, you get what you organize for. Well, Ilhan, just, little thought here. Why don't you try and do that a little bit more? Why don't you try to do a little bit more organizing and say, hey, Biden, people need the minimum wage just like they need to stay in their homes. Let's grind the gears of Congress to a halt. Let's make a big stink. Specific asks help, and they really help, and being willing to take a little heat from all sides, especially those in power, can really, really go a long way. They marshaled their huge social media followings, the attention of a news outlet media eager to cover intra-party conflict and direct confrontations with party leaders, to all but shame them into finding a solution. Several administration officials involved with recent deliberations credited Bush and the credibility of a protest rooted in her experience with adding the sense of urgency that contributed to the extension of the moratorium. And they weren't going to do it. Not urgency. It's not like, we're going to get around to it in a few days after we got back. No, they were gone for 7 weeks. If Cori Bush hadn't made the stink, nothing would have happened. It would have been completely forgotten about. Their success has really sent a bolt of energy through the progressive movement, and others now hope that it will signal the start of a new, more assertive phase in Washington. It comes as liberals are reeling from their latest string of defeats after Nina Turner, the progressive insurgent, lost a special election in the primary in Cleveland on Tuesday to an establishment-backed candidate, Shontel Brown. So, I think, just to tie up these two stories, they are related. And I think they show you, in the end, why don't listen to anyone who says, this is impossible, we have to give up. No. Keep fighting, because when we elect people like Nina Turner, when we organize, when we get there on the ground, we can put them in Congress and, just like Cori Bush, substantially change people's lives and make them better. All right. It's time for our last story here in the New York Times. The pressure on Governor Andrew Cuomo increased on Wednesday as 3 New York prosecutors announced that they were investigating his conduct toward current and former staffers. DAs in Manhattan, Nassau County, and Westchester County each disclosed that they requested investigative materials from the state's Attorney General's office in connection with open inquiries into the governor's behavior. They joined the Albany County Prosecutor's Office, which announced its own investigation on Tuesday, shortly after a report released by the Attorney General's office found that Cuomo had sexually harassed 11 women, some of them current and former staff members, including his groping and unwanted touching of employees. A lawyer for the governor on Tuesday called the report unfair, inaccurate, and utterly biased. There is no indication that any of the prosecutors has reached an advanced stage of an investigation, though their existence may heighten the political pressure on the governor to resign. The inquiries are no sure sign that criminal charges will be brought against the governor, given the potential reluctance of victims to come forward and the high legal bar it would take to win a conviction. A lawyer for one of the governor's accusers, Lindsey Boylan, said on Wednesday she planned to sue the governor and his close advisors for retaliatory actions they had taken to discredit her after she became the first woman to publicly accuse Cuomo of an unwanted sexual advance. Because Lindsey was first, the governor needed to send a message, said lawyer Jill Basinger. He needed to send a message to every other survivor out there that this is what happens when you want to go against the machine of the governor's office. And I think that's absolutely right. That we saw clear, just thug mafia mob tactics from someone like Cuomo. He was out there. He was sending threatening phone calls, intimidating messages, and his people were right behind him too. These people are cold-blooded, moralists, and not even in the kind of just banal, everyday Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi type way, in terms of just not caring what happens when people get evicted, and only caring about the political consequences of it. No, they're just aggressive. They're just aggressive as people. Like they think they're better than everyone. They try and boss everyone around because they're just from that old political dynasty, and they know that the Cuomo name. They literally have one of the top primetime hosts on CNN is also Cuomo that helped him with the investigation. Like, it's insane. Like, this is clear, obvious political collusion, and Chris Cuomo's job, by the way, should be in serious jeopardy. But again, absolutely crazy stuff that Cuomo is dealing with here. I think it's going to be hard for him to win another investigation or win another election. But hey, in a place like this, in a time like this, you never know. We're going to continue to follow the Cuomo story. Really been a rough last few days with him, and gotta say, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. That's all the time we got for you today. This has been Newsflash. We'll see you on Friday.